Hello! This video we're going to go over the introduction to our S.H.I.N.E seasonal, holistic, intuitive, nourishing, and empowered nutrition program, and get a little bit into how to eat mouthgasmically, how to use healthy hedonism to up level as we go through this process, and how to really be able to enjoy our food while increasing our health and our longevity at the same time. So I've named it S.H.I.N.E because each of those words has a very strong connection with how I approach nutrition. Eating seasonally, when we look at Chinese medicine and nutrition, is really important because each season requires a different amount of energy and a different amount of warmth. And when we get deeper into that, we learn that certain foods have different temperatures. Some may be warm, some may be cool, some may be hot. And this is different from the temperature at which we eat them, whether it's raw or cooked, a salad or a soup. Although that does come into play as well, especially in the winter. We tend to want to eat and need to eat more warming foods, both in the temperature at which they're served and the actual quality of the foods themselves. So we would eat in a cold environment in the winter. We would not want to eat as much salad. We would not want to eat, drink very cold smoothies. Room temperature might be okay, but if our digestion is challenged, then we would want to lean in that environment, in that season, more towards, soups that are warm, at least room temperature and warmer, and that also have some warming foods added to them. There's a whole list of what those things are that we get into within the program. The other thing we look at is how the foods affect our organs. And so we have tastes of foods. And these are strongly associated with the temperature as well. And the tastes are correlated with different organs and different meridian pathways, as well as the seasons. So, for example, we are in spring right now. Spring is the time of the liver, time when things are growing. Plants are really lush. There's a lot of green. And the taste of spring is sour. Sour really gets things moving. It strengthens our liver. It kicks us out of that kind of winter slowness and stagnation. So sour is this vibrant energy of uplifting and moving. And then we'll be moving soon into summer. And so summer, the organ of summer that's related to summer is the heart. The emotion is joy. And the taste is bitter, like something burning. And it's hot, so that makes sense. But also bitter is a very cooling flavor. So bitter or acrid. And, we don't get that taste all that much in Western society. And so it can be a really intriguing idea to bring that in. Where do we get those bitter tastes? In Chinese medicine, we often use things like orange peel, which have a slightly bitter quality, or sometimes a really bitter quality. Grapefruit peel, lemon peel are all big. But where can we get those in our foods as well? So we get into that, and how to tell when we need more of those foods, regardless of the time of year. For example, if we're struggling, we have a lot of heat in our chest, a lot of anxiety, we may need those bitter foods or herbs to help cool us off. If we're feeling a lot of rage and frustration and our liver is obviously very challenged, we can consciously choose, although we may do it unconsciously as well, to add in more sour foods into our nutritional program. Now, before we have awareness of this, we may do this unconsciously. We may crave sour foods, not knowing what it's actually doing. And that can actually translate into a lot of junk foods as well. When we crave salty chips and things like that. It's supporting our kidney, it's supporting the water in our body, helping to soften and dissolve hardnesses, as well as to make sure that we have enough fluid in our body. We're not just flushing it out. If we crave sweet things, that can be a sign that our spleen and pancreas need more nourishment, that our grounding isn't strong enough. So there's all these ways to approach foods aside from just calories. Calories, in my opinion, aren't actually even all that important, because when we learn to listen to our body signals, they will tell us what we need to eat and when. And the best way we can do that is by starting to observe what foods literally turn us on. They turn on the juices in our mouth, our saliva. They get our digestive juices flowing. We start to feel movement in our bellies, like we're doing a little happy dance inside. And so we want, as much as possible, to have the foods that we eat inspire that movement within us. That's how we know that our entire digestive tract is activated. And when our entire digestive tract is activated, we are going to have a much stronger chance of really effectively digesting and absorbing our foods and able to use the nutrients, whether it's energy from the calories, fats for our nervous system and hormones, protein to rebuild muscle, minerals to make sure that our bones and everything is healthy and strong. So there's a lot of information out there around nutrition. There's so many things that you can do. It can be really overwhelming, and I get that. I was there for a long time, especially because I've spent the last, I would say 30 years now, interested in and studying nutrition. And even within the holistic nutrition realm, there is a lot of variation. So my preference is to explain what the options are. So we break down the various possibilities that you can choose from, and find out what is best for your particular needs and how to shift, because our body won't necessarily always want the same way of eating at the same point in life. At different points in life, different points in our cycle as women, or men have cycles as well. There's all kinds of variation. And then when we add in seasonally, we can really learn to pinpoint the ideal foods that will best nourish our body at each moment in time. And it will help us. When we learn to use our intuitive eating styles, we learn to assess what we need. So we get feedback from our taste buds. Say it wants some chips, right? That's what comes up. I can check in with my being and say, okay, is it really the chips that I'm wanting? Or is it some fat? Is it some salt? Is there another way that I can get those things? Can I get some carbs, some healthy carbs? Or is it really that I'm wanting those chips? Is my inner child or my nervous system saying, yes, this is exactly what I want right now? Then we can make the conscious decision to act on as healthy of choice as possible. And if it's that we want the chips, we have the chips. If we can get it in a little bit healthier way, we can do that. So that's a big focus on the program, is learning to not only develop trust in our body signals, but to integrate the holistic wisdom and our ideal, plan. Like, is it important for us to not eat any animal products? Or do we want to eat them? Or is it important for us to be more on a primal or keto side of diet because we feel that's the best way? So we can incorporate all of these things coming together in a really beautiful way to support our deep nourishment. And that whole process is really about empowering us to not only trust our body signals around food, but to trust our body signals in all of our life as well. And I find that food is one of the foundational practices because our inner child is so reliant on it. Our nervous system is really reliant on it. When we don't nourish ourselves enough, it can really affect our ability to trust our body, to trust the signals we're receiving from it, but also trusting the signals that we're receiving from outside of our body. So our extrasensory perceptions, our intuitive field, our energy field receives signals from outside of us. And that can be from other beings, it can be from the earth, it can be from the Akashic records, whatever it is. If our nervous system isn't healthy enough and strong enough to process these signals, the signals are going to be confusing. And so we really focus on deeply nourishing our physical body so that all other aspects of our life can be really helpful. So seasonal, holistic, we look at the whole picture. Intuitive, really strongly developing our intuition around food and every aspect of our life. Nourishing, we deeply nourish as much as possible. And empowering, it's really about finding our power in this process, which so often is taken away from us from a very young age. Maybe even, before we even realized it, or often before we even realized it. And so when we can consciously make the choice to say, okay, so I'm on this journey towards better health or towards weight loss or longevity or whatever it is, and I'm making a very conscious decision that this thing that other people are saying I shouldn't eat is what I really need right now. It's a really empowering process because we learn that we can do that anywhere in our life as well. And we can begin with food. All right. Now the next step, the next level after we get those basics down is shifting into what I call healthy hedonism. And healthy hedonism is just taking it to another level. It's really trusting our intuition, but diving deeper into whether we are choosing to eat emotionally or intuitively. And it can be either. There's no right or wrong there. But with healthy hedonism, we tend more towards the intuitive side. We've had a chance to work through our more emotional-based eating, our inner child needs, and filling those voids that built up over time. Once we've processed most of that, we don't have to be perfect in that practice. But once we've really found our patterns and why we make choices emotionally around food, we can then shift into eating in a much more deeply intuitive way. And when we do that, we most commonly find that the choices that our intuition would guide us towards are actually quite healthy. And that doesn't mean that they're all vegan, perfect spiritual diets, but it does mean that all of the foods tend to be really deeply nourishing, and we tend to not choose the more inflammatory foods more often than not. And I don't start with this with most people unless they don't, if you have a lot of inner child issues, you don't want to start in that space because it can bypass a lot of needs that come up. And I find this really happens a lot with most nutritional programs, with a lot of fasting things. All of these emotional needs come up. And yes, we can try and meet them in other ways, but a lot of the time that's not meeting the actual need that needs to be met, it's bypassing it. And the needs that need to be met are being able to say, I want this, even though 99% of the people out there might say it's bad for me, my body's saying yes. And really learning to trust those signals. When we can trust those signals deeply, then we can say, okay, I hear you, inner child. If you really want that, I trust you, but let's try this right now instead. Just like we would with a young child. We're not going to necessarily want our 5-year-old to eat ice cream all the time. And so if they really want ice cream a lot, they're going to keep asking for it and asking for it. And at some point, we're going to say, okay, now we've had a lot of ice cream. Let's try thinking of other things that could meet that need. And that is the empowering piece. Being able to say yes or no, and to work on our own and with support in finding other options and being able to say yes or no to those as well. All right, I hope that makes sense. I could talk for hours on this. I will likely do a webinar soon, so if you're interested in more information about this whole S.H.I.N.E, intuitive and mouthgasmic eating process and healthy hedonism, go ahead and let me know. I'm going to be doing more videos also on different aspects of the program. Titles like to dairy or not to dairy, that is the question. Gluten, what is it good for? How, S.H.I.N.E and deep nutrition really impacts our intuition and our ability to manifest. Things like that. So if you have a specific topic, go ahead and drop me a line. If you want to jump right into the program, I'm usually doing it as part of the Embodied Empress one-to-one program, and we'll be incorporating it soon into group programs. So you can let me know if you're interested in either of those, and we'll get you started. All right, loves, talk to you soon.